Too often, self-acceptance is used as a synonym of acquiescence. acquiescence. We accept the things we cannot change. We accept death because we have no say over its arbitrary and indifference arrival at our door. We have personal histories of bland acceptance. We have accepted lackluster jobs because we were broke. We have accepted lousy partners because their busy presence was better than the hollow aloneness of their absence. We practice self-acceptance when we have grown tired of self-hatred, but can't conceive of anything beyond the paltry tolerance of ourselves. What a thin coat to wear on this weather-tossed road. Famed activist and Professor Angela Davis said, I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change, I'm changing the things I cannot accept. We can change the circumstances that have had us settled for self-acceptance. I assure you there is a richer, thicker, cozier blanket to carry through the world. There is a real and definitely more mind-blowing. It's called radical self-love. Radical reflection. It's a concept like self-acceptance and body neutrality are not without a value. When you have spent your entire life at war with your body, these models offer a truce. But you can have more than a ceasefire. You can have a radical self-love because you are already radical self-love. Why the body? Humans are varied and divergent bunch with all manners of beliefs, moral values, and ideas. We have struggled to find agreements on much of anything over the centuries. Just think about how long we argued about gravity and whether the world is shaped like a pizza. But here's a completely non-controversial statement. I think we have consensus around. You, my dear, have a body, and should you desire to remain on this spinning rock hurtling through space, you will need a body to do it. Everything else we think we know is up for debate. Our spiritual beings depends on who you ask. Do humans have souls? Been fighting about that since Aristotle, like the souls of fetuses to those of vegetables, but bodies? Yep, we got those. And given this widely agreed upon reality, it seems to me if ever there were a place where the practice of radical love could be a transformative force, the body ought to be that location. When we speak of ills of the world, violence, poverty, and justice, we are not speaking conceptually. We are talking about things that happen to bodies. When we say millions around the world are impacted by the global epidemic of famine, what we are saying is that millions of humans are experiencing the physical deterioration of muscles and other tissues due to lack of nutriment in their bodies. Injustice is an opaque world until we are willing to discuss its material reality, as for example, the 16 years old Khalif brother spent beaten and locked in solitary confinement in Rikos Island prison without even being charged with a single crime. His suicide and his mother's heart attack 2 years later are not abstraction, they are outcomes and justice enacted on two bodies: racism, sexism, ableism, homo and transphobia, ageism, fatphobia. Our algorithm created by human struggle to make peace with the body. A radical self-love world is a world free from the system of oppression that make it difficult and sometimes deadly to live on our bodies. A radical self-love world is a world that works for everybody. Creating such a world is an inside-out job. How we value and honor our own bodies impact how we value and honor the bodies of others. Our own radical self-love reconnections is the blueprint for what author Charles Einstein calls the more beautiful world our heart knows it's possible. It is though our own transformed relationship with our bodies that we become champion for other bodies on our planet. As we awaken to our endocrinated body shame, we feel inspired to awaken others and interrupt the systems that perpetuate body shame, oppression against all bodies. There is a whisper we keep hearing. It is saying we must build in us what we want to see built in the world. When we act from this truth on a global scale, using the lens of the body, we usher in the transformative opportunity of radical self-love, which is the opportunity for more just, equitable, and compassionate world for us all. Moving from body shame to radical self-love is a road of inquiry and insight. We will need to ask ourselves through questions from a place of praise and grounding. Together, we will examine what we have come to believe about ourselves, our bodies, and the world we live in. At times, the road might appear dark and ominous, but fret not, my friend. Fret not, my friend. I have provided some lampposts all along the way. They come in from the inapologetic inquiries, questions you will ask yourself as you endeavor the camp of recess of your body shame and dismantle its parts. Radical reflections will highlight central themes and concepts you will want to remember as we take this journey together. This is not a math test and you cannot fail. Be patient with yourself. Take your time. As my best friend Maureen Benson say, you are not late. Why must it be radical? Okay, Sonia, I get it. Loving ourselves is important, but why do we have to be all radical about it? To answer this question is to further distinguish radical self-love from the fickle cousins, self-confidence and self-esteem, or the scabby kid sister, self-acceptance. It requires that we explore the definition of the word radical. Language is fluid and evolutionary. Regularly living dictionary definition feeling dated and sorely lacking in nuance. How we construct language is an enormous part of how we understand and judge bodies. The definition of radical is a powerful one as we explore its relationship to self-love. The dictionary.com defines a radical as of or going to the root or origin, fundamental, a radical difference, thoroughgoing or extreme, especially as regard change from accepted or traditional form. A radical change is the policy of a company favoring drastic political, economic, or social reforms, radical ideas, radical and anarchistic ideologue, forming the basics or foundation, existing inherently in a thing or person, radical defect of character. Radical self-love is deeper, wider, and more expansive than anything you would call self-confidence or self-esteem. It is juicier than self-acceptance, including the words radical, offers us a self-love that is the root or origin of our relationship to ourselves. We did not start life in a negative partnership with our bodies. I have never seen a toddler lament the size of their dicks, the cushions of their bellies. Children do not arrive here ashamed of their race, gender, age, or disabilities. Babies love their bodies. Each discovery they encounter is freaking awesome. Have you ever seen an infant realize that they have a feet? Realize they have a feet? Talk about wonder. What an obstructed relationship with our bodies looks like. You were an infant once, which one means there was a time when you thought your body was freaking awesome too. Connecting to that memory may feel as distant as the furthest star. It may not be a memory you can access at all, but just knowing that there was a point in your history when you once loved your body can be a reminder that body shame is a fantastically crappy inheritance. We didn't give it to ourselves, and we are not obligated to keep it. We arrived on this planet as love. We need not to do anything other than turn on the television for evidence affirmation how desperately our society, our world needs an extreme form of love, self-love, to contour the constant barrage of shame, discrimination, and body-based oppression enacted against us daily. Television shows like The Biggest Loser encourage dangerous and unsustainable exercise and food restriction from their contesting, while using their bodies as fodder for our entertainment and reinforcing the notion that the most undesirable body one can have is a fat body. Researchers have shown that American news outlets regularly exaggerate crime rates, including a tendency to inflate the rates of black offense while depicting black suspects in a less favorable light than their white counterpart. People with disabilities are virtually non-existent on television unless they are being trotted out as inspiration porn. Their stories are often told in ways that exploit their disabilities for the emotional edification of able-bodied people, presenting them as a superhuman for doing unspectacular things like reading or going to store, or worse yet, for overcoming obstacles placed on them by the very society that fails to acknowledge or appropriately accommodate their bodies. Of course, we need something radical to change these messages. Using the term radical elevates the reality that our society requires drastic political, economic, and social reformation in the ways in which we deal with bodies and body difference. The US Constitution was written to sanction governmental body oppression. When the Bill of Rights was signed, relatively few Americans had voting rights. Among those excluded from suffrage were African Americans, Native Americans, women, white men with disabilities, and white males who did not own land. Voting rights for women? Nope. Blacks? Nope. They were only counted as 3/5 of a full person. Using a wheelchair? No voting for you, dear. Race, gender, and disability prejudice were written into the governing document of the United States. Consider that the right to marry the person you love, regardless of your gender, was only legally sanctioned in the United States in 2015. In certain other nations, for example Australia, it is still illegal marriage equality for same-sex couples in its historical infancy in the United States and non-existent for most of the world. Transgender people are currently fighting across the United States to retain their legal rights to use the bathroom that matches their gender identity. People with disabilities have higher rates of unemployment regardless of educational attainment. These political economics and social issues are about our bodies, their interests with our race, age, gender, ability, sexual orientation, and the multitude of their ways our bodies exist. In 1989, Columbia law professor and scholar Kimberly Crenshaw gave a name of this long understood dynamic. She called it intersectionality, and defined it as the study of an overlapping or interesting social identities and a related system of oppression, domination, or discrimination. The theory suggests that and seek to examine how various biological, social, and cultural categories such as gender, race, class, ability, sexual orientation, religion, caste, age, and other axes of identity interact on a multitude of often simultaneous levels. The theory proposed that we should think of each element or trait of a person as inextricably linked with all of the other elements in order to fully understand one's identity. Intersectionally has become a term often revered or repudiated depending on the source, but plainly none of us are monodimensional. We are not only men, father, people living with lupus, Asian, or seniors. Some of us are each other. Some of us are again Asian fathers who are living with lupus. Those variation identities impact each other in ways that are significantly different than if we were navigating them one at a time. Radical self-love demands that we see ourselves and others in the fullness of our complexities and intersection, that we work to create space for those intersections, as has been true throughout history, changing the systemic and structural oppression that regard us in perfunctory and myopic ways requires sweeping changes in our laws, policies, and social norms. Creating a world of justice for all bodies demands that we be radical and intersectional.